Back here on the starting lineup, ESPN Radio 1340, 1069 WCDT Winchester. Joe Abraham alongside Chewy, and now in studio with us, Dr. Alsup. Dr. Alsup.
I would have had an intro for you if I knew that you were coming in this morning. Yeah.
Director of School. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How are you this morning? How are you feeling this morning?
I'm very excited to get started. I'm kind of still spinning a little bit from last night. Did not sleep very well, just thinking about all of it. But, I'm just flattered. I saw several comments on Facebook, and I'm just very flattered that people are excited about me being the director of schools. That's a very important job. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so I'm just I'm soaking it all in because I know, I'm just one controversial decision away from, being on the other side of that.
What's the Chewy? What's the line in Batman? You live long enough to see yourself become the villain or something like that. Listen, our goal is to not reach that point, right? And here's the thing: is that that you're going to have probably the first decision that you make is going to be controversial to somebody or something. Somebody will get wound up about it. But here's the thing. You have worn so many different hats across the district, from principal to HR supervisor to deputy director. How does this role feel differently to you just right off the bat?
The buck stops with me, and I've always had somebody that I had to answer to. Now I actually have 8 people that I answer to, the whole community of Franklin County. But I think the fact that, I am the ultimate person responsible for everything that goes on in the school district. And that's a little heavier load. And I have no problem with that. I have no problem making decisions, and I take up for my decisions. I don't push that blame off on anyone else. Sometimes there will be hard decisions that have to be made. That's just part of leadership.
Yeah, that's part of the role. It is, in a lot of ways, it's a thankless role. And it's one of those things where, you look at the district and you've got an opportunity. Dr. Holman is still there. You're going to have the transition between now and July 1st. Talk about the benefits of having that kind of a soft handoff.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. It's going to be a smooth transition. We have already talked about how that's going to look. We're getting in budget season, so there will be a lot of discussions about that. We are going to be good stewards of the county's finances. We're not going to be reckless. We're going to look at ways and make cuts where we can make cuts. And so that is the most important thing coming up that we're going to have to address together, Dr. Holman and I. So
yeah, as far as the district goes, do you have 3 top priorities, either maybe things that you want to work on, or maybe they're just the priorities of things that you find important?
Sure. Well, academics, number one priority, obviously. But I think we need to address our athletics as well, and the arts. Those are the 3 things that the board members have told me that are priorities for them. And I know you're a sports guy, and I am too. I played high school athletics, and I've coached, and there's a lot of value in having strong athletic programs. So we need to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to support that. We have a lot of talented people in our community too, so we need to make sure that we're supporting those interests with the arts. When I first came to Franklin County High School 10 years ago, believe it or not, we did not have a choir program, and so that was, here we are just south of Nashville. Why do we not have a choir program? So I added that and some other things that I think, just make sure we're addressing the other interest of our students.
Yeah.
And so I think, let me go back to your question.
Yeah.
Academics, safety, and I'm going to include athletics and the arts and the academics, okay?
Yeah.
Safety and just transparency.
Yeah, that's great. And I agree with you as far as the athletics and the arts. I was one of those types of students who, I knew that academics were important. I knew that they were the reason for school.
Right.
That's what you do. But when you're in high school, a lot of times it's everything but the academics. It's, if I'm chasing the girls, if I'm playing the football, if I'm, it's everything else in life that makes it kind of palatable, because otherwise you're just droning in and out of class and studying and things like that. And for me and for a lot of kids, that's not enough to kind of keep them excited and keep them going. They need something extra.
Exactly. As a coach, I know I had a lot of kids that, that was the only thing they had going for them.
Yeah.
They were really, really good athletes, but everything outside of that was a struggle. And I never saw their parents, guardians at any of our, I was a track coach, and they never came to the track meets. And some of these kids were really phenomenal athletes.
Right.
And unfortunately, they didn't survive the culture.
Right.
It just was too much for them.
Speaking of culture, we live in such a unique area in that a lot of different districts that you can go to or schools that you can go to, they've got specific, they focus on the arts, or they've got some sort of specialty. When you look at our community, we have a lot of athletes, we have a lot of academics, we have a lot of even the CTE program is absolutely tremendous. And there are a lot of kids that are going to be in our future in manufacturing here in the community. And then a lot of these kids that are coming up as well through the district are going to stay here and going to remain here. And so making sure that they are supporting this community. How do you handle all of the different dynamics? It's got to be a challenge because from a school district standpoint, you can't just focus in on one thing, really. You've got to kind of be holistic in everything.
Yeah, I mean, that is a challenge, and you can't, obviously, we can't be that specific with we can't tailor our programs to, individuals' needs. So we have to, I think we just have to make sure that we're giving those kids the foundation so that they can look at other opportunities to get more education or more experience or more training. As long as they have that basic, foundation, then they're going to be successful, and that's what I think is very important. I was not a very good student in high school. I graduated in the bottom third of my class, and I remember I was put in a biology class in high school. My counselor said I need biology to graduate. Hated it, barely passed. I think I got a D. But then I got a biology degree in college. That's what I was
really
taught, certified to teach biology. So my point is this: I did get those basic skills at some point, and whether I liked it or knew it or not, I had those skills. So I was able to, once I got out of high school and I joined the Air Force, I was able to be successful because I knew how to do those things that I didn't realize I knew how to do, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
so,
no, that's tremendous. So as far as, safety and academic achievement go, how do you, and I get it, safety is so important, but sometimes it can be a challenge to make sure that it doesn't overshadow the academic side of things.
Right. And so the question is, how much is too much? And I was in the Army. I spent 27 years total in the military, and I spent 12 months in Fallujah, Iraq, right after the Phantom Fury, the Battle of Fallujah. And I was at Camp Fallujah, and we were surrounded by, I think there were 20-foot concrete walls with Marines guarding the perimeter, and concertina wire at the top, and people were still killed inside the Camp Fallujah.
Wow.
And so here's my point: do we want to put those concrete walls and concertina wire and guard towers around our schools? Is that what we want our kids?
Right.
That would be the ultimate protection for our kids.
Right.
So I think what we have to do is we have to look as what is acceptable. What is our community willing to accept as far as safety and security for their students? And we do a lot of things. We have Chris Hawkersmith is our safety guy, and he has spent a lot of time working with these schools and coming up with plans and drills and those kinds of things that are very, very important. And to me, I think those are the things that we have to do, and we have to make sure that our schools and our principals take safety very seriously, and that we are very careful about, letting people in our buildings and making sure that we know, who's coming in and why they're coming in. Those are the kinds of things that I think, do we need metal detectors? Do we need more security? Is more security going to help? Going to make any difference? Is going to deter somebody? I don't know. I feel like we do a lot right now, and I've had a lot of training actually in school safety and been to several workshops, and I think the things that we have to make sure we're doing is we have to make sure that whoever might have an interest in hurting some of our kids by entering a school, they have to know that that's a hard target.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to get in there. And then once they're in there, we're going to slow that person down and give law enforcement time to get there.
Yeah.
And so those are the things I feel like we are doing a good job of.
Yeah. No, I think, we spend a lot of time going to and from the high school. And it's like an act of Congress to get through that front door. You got to hit the thing and ring the button. And
when I first came here, though, it was wide open.
It was not like that. Yeah, that's a good point. And even when I was in school, it was like you just walk in the front door.
Right.
Landon Relford wanted to jump in saying, best man for the job, excited for you to get started.
Thanks, Landon.
And Doug Garrett says that he ran into you in the dog food aisle the other day in Walmart on Sunday. Little did I know he's talking to the director of school. Congrats, Dr. Alsup.
Thanks. I didn't know if he recognized me or not. I recognized him. So,
as far as culture goes, and there have been a lot of conversations that we've had regarding culture in the school district and in the community, how do you go about building up culture in the school district while also still, having that sense of accountability and it not feeling punitive?
Sure. Well, that's a complicated question. One of the things that I think I really want to work very hard to fix is I think there's a lack of trust with our citizens, with our community.
Yeah.
And I've got to try to restore some of that trust. When something happens, I don't want the go-to to be, they're thinking that we're doing something wrong or
like hiding something.
Hiding something. Yeah. Instead, I want them to think, they know what they're doing. I don't understand that, but I just trust that they're using the right judgment and making the right decisions.
Right.
As far as the culture, our clientele has changed a lot over the last, even 10 years since I've been here.
Right.
And the thing we have to understand is they're not going to change back. So we've got to change how we conduct our business. We've got to change how we're addressing student needs and our parent needs. That all does go to culture, I think. So it's a process. There's several things we need to tackle, but it is not one of those things that will happen, overnight.
Well, you have overseen HR across the district. Right. What is one misconception that the public might have about some of the challenges within the school district?
Well, no misconception. We have a great teaching staff, and I think we have to focus on what we need to do to support our teachers. And I know parents get upset with the teachers, and things happen that they don't understand. But I'm telling you, these teachers, they love those kids, and they will do anything in the world to make sure those kids are successful.
If you're talking directly to a lot of parents and students, and they have questions going in this morning about what the future looks like for the school district, what would you specifically want to get? What message would you want to get across to them?
I want the parents to understand how important those teachers are, and I think building that relationship with those teachers is really, really important. And I'm going to work hard to make sure we can do that. I want those parents to know that those teachers, they do a great job, and they're doing everything they can to teach those kids. I just want them to be patient and support them, and don't necessarily jump to conclusions when your kid comes home and says something happened at school.
Right.
Kids aren't necessarily lying, but they don't necessarily have all the facts, or they tell it from their side, and and sometimes it sounds bad and it really isn't. So that communication with the teachers is really important.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times they don't understand, even if they get in trouble for something that they may see as an isolated incident, they may not see the bigger picture and how it affects. So I think that that's important. And you mentioned, supporting the teachers in that way. The teachers are adults, and
Absolutely.
I think that one of the things that we've lost as a community, as a society, is when I would come home and I got in trouble.
Absolutely.
I was guilty until proven innocent.
Yes.
Nowadays, a lot of kids will come home and the first response from the parent is, why are you signaling out my kid? Or
That's
my
right.
kid is perfect, he
right.
didn't do anything. How do you give back that support from your position? How do you give back that support to the teachers to be able to lead their classrooms in that way?
I expect the building principals to support those teachers, and I will support those building principals and teachers. And the Board of Education is going to have to follow suit. They're going to have to support me, supporting those principals, supporting those teachers. That is going to be so important.
Yeah.
And just that, again, there's that trust factor that we don't have in this community between the parents and some of our teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to reestablish that.
I think, and I think that it's as far as communication as well, leading that charge from the top down is a good way of looking at it. Do we have another one in the chat?
We've got a few. John Korak said he was also in Iraq for 14 months, and he remembers the concrete walls. Kelsey Wood says, that's my bonus, Dad. Go, Roger. So some concerns were also brought up, and not going to ambush you here, but he just said, please, Roger, keep the special ed money in special ed. I'm trying to keep my level 3 autistic child. All I want to do is coach him in wrestling on the mat and take him fishing one day. And then Ivy Dwight jumped in saying, any thoughts on redrawing lines for each school zones to help distribute students more evenly throughout the elementary schools?
Yeah, it's way too early for me to get into
Okay,
that.
yeah.
But absolutely. We're open to, everything's on the table,
Right,
really.
right.
If there's things that we need to fix, we need to look at that. As far as, the question about the SPED, I've seen that on Facebook a few times, and I would like for that person just to reach out to me because I need to know specifically what he's referring to.
Yeah. Well, John the Butcher, as we like to call him, he's heavily involved in the show, and he is. He's very, and everybody who's a part of the district, right? They've all got the thing that they're tied into based on their kids. So whether it's the SPED program or, like I said, the CTE program, or maybe their student is an athlete, and so again, you've got a lot of people who are very passionate.
Absolutely.
And you're the man that gets to deal with it all now.
Well, and whatever programs, whatever sports teams or whatever we have, I expect them to be great.
Yeah.
And I expect us to put the best people in there, and I expect them to work hard to make sure that we're doing everything possible for our kids.
Yeah.
We can't have mediocre programs. We just can't. That's unacceptable.
No, and again, we've talked about it in the past as well, regarding the district and battling for teachers or battling for athletes who may want to transfer out and things like that, and setting a new standard where like just good enough is not good enough.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
As far as from your perspective, taking the lead on that, I think that's a culture thing. That's a buy-in thing. We're going to set a new standard. It's a new day.
Yes. Yep. And I I need to hear from people.
Yeah.
My office, we go out to the schools. We spend one full day at each school. We've been doing that since the fall. And it has been really good to hear from people. They come in and they want to talk, or they just make comments about various things that necessarily have a question, but they just have a suggestion or a concern, and I need that.
Right, that's the feedback.
I can't fix something if I don't know it's broke.
Right.
And I don't automatically, I don't want people to feel like I dismiss them. I listen to them, I make notes, and I try to address it. Sometimes I know that it's not anything that we can do. It's just kind of how it is. We're dealing with state and federal laws, and so my hands are somewhat tied. But if it's not, and if it's something that we need to fix, absolutely, let's fix it.
Yeah, and sometimes too, there are people who may come up to you, and it may be the first time that you've heard that concern, right? And once doesn't necessarily set an emergency, but if you start hearing it a bunch,
yes.
Another thing that I've seen is that parents or supporters of the community, they'll come to teachers or athletic directors or whatever the case is, and you kind of touched on it there, is they'll raise a concern. But as far as the school district moving on it, you can take steps to move in that direction finding a resolution, though,
Yeah.
sometimes takes time, especially if
Yes.
you're working through the
That's
state.
right. That's exactly right.
All right, let's get a quick break in here. I have something I want to ask you in a break,
Okay.
and then we'll see if we can talk about it in the next segment, because there is a question that's been brought up plenty here as of late in the community. We'll do that. We'll talk more with Dr. Alsup on the other side. If you've got questions for him, I encourage you to go over to the ESPN Winchester Facebook page and drop them in the chat. We're not going to hold him too much longer. He's got stuff he's got to do, so we're going to send him on his way. But we're excited to have him in this morning. Again, you're tuned into ESPN Radio 1340, 1069 WCDT Winchester. Back here on the starting lineup, ESPN Radio 1340, 1069 WCDT Winchester. Joe Abraham in studio with Chewy, and this morning we have had the blessing of having Dr. Alsup stop by and have a conversation with us, the new director of schools here in Franklin County. And Dr. Alsup.
Starting July 1st.
Starting July 1st, yeah. One of the questions that's been brought up here as of late, and we've gotten a lot of interest in this whole thing because it was kind of weird that it happened in the middle of the school year,
Right.
is that Deckard has let their principal go, and they have an interim principal, and a lot of, again, questions raised in that
Sure.
in and around that situation. Is there anything, any kind of color that you can give listeners for that whole situation?
Well, obviously it's a personnel decision.
Mhm.
It's a personnel matter, and we don't talk about that. We can't really talk about that. There's lots of reasons. There's legal reasons. Plus, just to be fair to everyone who's involved.
Right.
We don't go into education to deal with these hard personnel decisions.
Right.
We go in because we want to help people.
Right.
But when we get put in leadership situations, that requires us to make decisions that are uncomfortable and tough.
Right.
And so those decisions are made. And, there's just a lot of thought and a lot went into that. It's unpopular, I know. I understand all that. But, I think, Dr. Holman just felt like it's time to go ahead and make the change and,
Right.
and go in a different direction. So,
Well, and we don't shy away from difficult conversations here on the show, that's for sure.
Sure.
And all that being said, I think that what you can take from it is, regardless of what people's opinions are regarding the matter, that you, Dr. Alsup, the board, everybody involved in the process over there at the district is constantly assessing and
Yes.
reassessing what is best for the district
Right.
and what is best for the students and the teachers at these individual schools.
right.
And there's a saying in sports where no player is bigger than the team, and regardless of sometimes how great or how much some people may like a person, or some people may have faith in a person, sometimes it's always not necessarily the best thing for. You could have the best player on the team, you pull them off of the team, and the team performs better. It depends on the situation. Everything is so different. Everything, in this situation, there are so many details that go into it that
Right.
the average person, the average parent, me, a lot of people are on the district, they don't know the details.
Right.
And so to have an opinion on it, really, we have to have trust and have faith in the
Yep.
leadership in you guys to make
Right.
these types of decisions.
And I hope that I can build the trust in the community where that will be their, maybe their first go-to won't be that there's something
bad.
something bad, there's some scandal or something horrible.
Right.
Instead, like, that's interesting. I wonder what happened, but I trust that was, well thought out, and they took a lot of factors into consideration before
Right.
they did that.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, communication and transparency is so important across the district in terms of earning that trust. And I think that even just you stepping in and coming in this morning and having the conversation this morning, again, you're locked in. July 1st, you're ready to go,
Right.
but you're already set to have
Right.
some of these tough conversations and communicate directly with the people. As far as going forward, we've talked about athletics a lot on the show, and it's very important and near and dear to my heart. What are your hopes and dreams for athletics in the district?
Well, again, like I said, we want everything that we're doing in Franklin County to be great, including our sports programs. And that includes the middle schools and Huntland High School, Huntland Middle School. We want our sports teams, to be, one of those programs where people see us on their schedule like, oh, dang, I dread that, or, I'm not looking forward to that game, or I'm not looking forward to that meet, or, and I think at one time, our football program was there because my wife's uncle played high school football, and he remembers playing Franklin County. He's like, oh gosh, and especially if it was in Winchester, like, oh my gosh, maybe I could have an injury. So I want to get to that.
Yeah,
and I think Coach Reed is the right person, and we talked about Coach Reed quite a bit, and he's the right person to get that program turned around. And it's there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we're trying to do to help support him.
Right.
But also, what do these coaches need? What do these athletic directors need to make sure we're supporting their programs?
Yeah.
And so I do want to make sure that I get that information, and we can make that a budgetary issue, and we can get the county commissioners on board, and they understand what we're trying to do. And I'm telling you, our sports programs will keep those kids in Franklin County. And actually, I think it'll be a draw. People will want to come here.
No, I agree with you. And you mentioned supporting the coach, and I think that one of the things I have been frustrated with as of late is, the question is, how can not only we support the coaches, but the principals, the teachers, and all this stuff, and really what it comes back to is the community, the parents, and the community surrounding these individuals. I've been to a few meetings as of late, and one of the things that keeps popping up in my mind is the lack of involvement from a lot of people will jump online and they'll have an opinion on it, and then the meeting comes around and they won't necessarily be there.
That's right.
How can you appeal to folks to maybe get involved?
Sure, and I think winning will help some of that. Winning solves a lot of problems. We can't force people to get involved, but I think that, they will. I don't know. I don't have a good solution for that. It's not a new problem. It's not a Franklin County problem. It's just a problem. Can we turn that around? Is that something that will get better? I think so. I think it does begin with the coach and that relationship that the coach has with the players and the parents. When I was coaching, I had some great parents and very supportive, and if there was anything I needed, there was 2 or 3 parents that were on top of it. And so I feel like, I think we'll get there. Again, it's a process, and it's going to have to be something that is a priority for, the leadership.
Yeah. Well, as far as leadership goes, you've worked hand in hand with Dr. Holman over the last few years. One of the questions that some folks may have is, how are you guys similar, and how are you different? How do you stand alone from him?
Sure. We're similar, and we both have a very strong passion for education and making sure that we're providing our kids with the best education they can get. Our differences have to do with our backgrounds. I come from Missouri. I was born and raised there, and I spent 25 years in education in Missouri and retired from there. This is my retirement job, by the way.
Nice retirement job.
Yeah. And, plus, my time in the military as an Army officer, those leadership situations, they actually, that affects the decisions that I made as a school leader too. So I think just our experiences will make us different, and I'm going to make different decisions than he has. And, we talk about a lot of things, and I think that, at the end of the day, we both care very much for Franklin County schools. And
right.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as, and you kind of touched on your leadership background, how would you describe your leadership?
Well, I'm a servant leader. I can. It's multidimensional. I sit back and listen, and I take note, and I process. Or if a decision needs to be made, I can do that too.
Right.
But I also like to get a lot of good input and I don't want yes people around me. I want people that disagree with me, and I want people that I can pitch something. And there's times when I'll pitch an idea, and I don't even know if I like the idea, but I'm going to pitch it just to see what the response is.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of people I want to surround myself with.
I think that it's important, you said, being a servant leader within the school district. I think that that's an important dynamic to kind of have, because your job is supporting the principals and supporting the teachers of the district.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I am so happy that we got a chance to sit down with you this morning, and I know that it's only the first of many conversations that we're going to have, and I'm excited about it. And so, again, if there's anything that you want to leave parents and students with this morning, now's the time.
Well, just I'm a man of faith, and I believe in the power of prayer, and I just ask that people keep me in their prayers in the school district while we're going through this transition. And really, that's the best I could hope anyone would do for me.
Yeah. Well, that's tremendous. You'll be in mind, certainly. Well, Dr. Alsup joining us this morning here on the starting lineup. We appreciate you so much for making the run over, and we will see you again soon. We'll let you get back to it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Have a good one. All right. We'll be back on the other side. You're tuned in to the starting lineup. This is ESPN Radio 1340, 106.9 WCDT Winchester.